Hey folks, welcome back to Only Best Fancy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I'm going to talk about The Wandering Fire by Gavriel, the second book of his Fionavar Tapestry. And this is an okay installment in what's largely been an okay series for me so far. It's more of a slower installment, as middle books tend to be. Yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell. Anyway, what is going on in this book? So in this one, the Dark Lord is free, and there's an unnatural winter that settled over the land of Fionavar. The son he doesn't know he has is growing in the home of another child who has a mysterious fate of his own, and as the good guys basically look to find a way to release the icy grip that settled over the land. They'll turn to figures out of myth and legend, but those figures may not necessarily have much interest in helping them solve the dilemma that they're in. So that's kind of the gist of what basically goes on in here. We kick off the book with the five characters from the real world, our world, who have kind of we kind of get like a short reminder of how drastically their first outing to Fionavar has kind of changed them. In some cases, like we see that the benefits of being kind of positive. In other cases, less so. For one character in particular, like the what they suffered in Fionavar was absolutely devastating, whereas one he found almost like a home away from home there. So that's kind of where we open with them catching up with where they are at this point in time, and then they quickly get pulled back into Fionavar naturally to continue the story as we know it, and from there things just kind of slowly unfold. Like they have this. They're literally dealing with a weather, the issue being the weather, and they have to come up with a magical way to, or some way to resolve this issue. So, and that's aside from all the politicking and all the usual stuff that's going on in this book. So it's like a very average meh kind of book, to be honest. It doesn't really break any new molds. Matter of fact, unfortunately, it goes the opposite direction and just kind of digs deeper into the whole drawing heavily from its inspirations. Because if you're a fan of Arthurian mythology, this book is going to be a jam. Like in this one, the like we did see the Arthurian influences in the very first book, but in this one they ramped up tenfold, and we find out all sorts of convoluted, crazy stuff. Unfortunately, personally, I'm severely saturated when it comes to the whole King Arthur thing. Like I'm just, if I never read another King Arthur story again, my life will be very satisfying. And so that those parts just flat out did not work for me. Like I genuinely didn't care much, and unfortunately, they are very dominant sections of this book. Like we find out. Kay's take on the whole. He puts his own spin on the whole Arthurian myth. Yeah. Anyway, you'll find out if you actually get around to reading it. So I think the way he actually does it isn't like bad per se. It's just that it just flat out does not work for me. And the thing is, what I like about it is that as much as this seems to be like a solution to your problem, it also introduces a whole new batch of problems on its own, because these characters come with severe baggage, and it becomes its own thing there. Aside from all of that, like we have some other like crazy scenes that happen over the course of the book. Like honestly, when I think back on it now, the two main characters, right, that really kind of carried the book for me for the most part are like Jennifer's and Kevin's. But even that's not saying much, because they have, for me at least, they have like inherent issues at their core. Both storylines have inherent issues at the core that don't quite that mean that as much as I appreciate what they do, I don't necessarily enjoy them personally. and that's kind of it. So so that's it. Honestly, for the majority of this book, the majority of the characters, I just did not care what was going on, and that's fine. What else can I say about this book? Honestly, I do emphasize how much the Arthurian influence is in this book, but it's not the only kind of influence that Kay draws on. Like there's very much some other stuff that he pulls on. Like I think I mentioned it in the first book, but it's actually this book that it happens, and it's the inclusion of the Beltane ritual, and that, and that ritual by itself, it involves the whole storyline with one of the characters that's just, I don't know. I'll leave you to read that and decide how you want to react to that. But I couldn't take it seriously when that particular scene played out. If you know, you know. If you don't know, if and when you ever read this book, because I know Kay has the Kay fans are growing by legion now, and sooner or later someone is going to read this who watches this video. So yeah, when you get to it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. That was a whole thing, basically. There, there is some things that were included. I wish it had been kind of explored a little bit more. Like the circumstances surrounding the birth of the child of the Dark Lord, for instance. Like that is that's a topic that's ripe for a little bit of exploration. But unfortunately, like in these older fantasy novels, that wasn't necessarily much of a focus. Not that it isn't unpacked; it is to some extent, but not in any significant way that I can even recall, to be honest. But yeah, like overall, this is a book. As much as it's slower, it kind of, you can very much tell it's just kind of setting the stage and ramping things up towards the end. That's not to say that things are off the table here, that everyone just gets away scot free. Like death, dismemberment, trauma, physical and emotional, everything can happen in here, and everything does happen in here in one way, shape, or form. But yeah, that's kind of it for my thoughts on the 1 in 5. An average book in so far was been a less than average series for me. The only real saving grace of this thing so far has just been, of course, GTK's spectacular prose. But at this point, that's just a standard for him. Like that's kind of the baseline from which everything leaps off. So, yeah, I guess that's it for me. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.